Hey everyone. So today we're diving deep into reframing. That technique for shifting your perspective.
It's a pretty popular one these days.
Yeah, you've been sending me a bunch of articles and research about, seems like you're really getting into this.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to uncover here.
Yeah,
From personal growth to even societal change, there are so many ways this can apply.
it's true. I'm actually seeing some connections to some of our past deep dives too. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's break this down. What exactly is reframing?
Well, think about adjusting a camera lens.
Okay.
The situation, whatever it is, it doesn't change.
Right.
But you get to choose how you're looking at it. You can zoom in, pull back for a wider view,
Mm.
even swap out a dark lens for a brighter one.
So we have more control over how we see things than we think. We're not just stuck.
Exactly. And this isn't just some self-help theory. This is serious stuff. Reframing is a core technique used in CBT.
CBT. Oh, right. Cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah, therapists use it all the time. It helps people challenge those negative thought patterns and just develop overall healthier coping mechanisms.
That makes sense. But can you give me an example? Like, how's it actually used in therapy?
Sure. Imagine someone is dealing with really bad social anxiety.
Okay.
They might be avoiding social situations altogether because they're afraid of being judged or rejected.
Makes sense.
A therapist might work with them to reframe those fears, by focusing on the potential positives of socializing, connecting with people, sharing experiences, building relationships.
So instead of focusing on what could go wrong, they're thinking about what could go right.
Exactly. And that shift in perspective can lead to some major changes in behavior. Like instead of avoiding those social situations, they start approaching them, maybe even with a sense of curiosity and excitement.
That's pretty powerful. So reframing isn't just about thinking positive, it's about taking action too.
Right. And it can apply to so much more than just anxiety. The research you sent over, it talks about reducing stress, improving relationships, achieving goals.
Yeah, and I saw that thing about reducing burnout. That one really stood out to me. I feel like that's something we all struggle with these days.
Oh, for sure. Reframing can help you manage those feelings of overwhelm by shifting your focus. It helps you find ways to feel more empowered, even when things are tough.
That's a game changer for sure. So it's not just wishful thinking, it's about finding practical solutions.
Totally. And it's not just about changing your thoughts, it's about literally rewiring your brain.
Wait, hold on. Rewiring my brain. Are you serious?
Yeah. That's the incredible thing about neuroplasticity. Your brain is constantly changing based on what you experience, what you think about.
Oh, okay. So, like, how does that work with reframing?
Every time you reframe something, every time you choose to look at it differently, you're strengthening new pathways in your brain and weakening old ones.
Wow. So, if I keep practicing this, if I keep reframing things, I can actually make positive changes in my brain.
Yeah, you're actually creating new pathways for positive and constructive thinking.
Yeah.
And that, affects everything, your behavior, your emotions, even your physical health.
Okay. That is a lot to take in. But I got to be honest, part of me is a little skeptical. Like, does this actually work in the real world? Are there, examples of people who have used reframing to actually achieve incredible things?
Oh, tons. Take Rowan Atkinson, for example.
Mr. Bean, really?
Yeah. He struggled a lot early on in his career. His comedic style, it was so unique, and he had a stutter.
Right.
Instead of letting those challenges hold him back, define him, he actually reframed them. He leaned into that physical comedy and used his stutter to create that iconic Mr. Bean character.
Wow. He turned his so-called weaknesses into, like, global fame. That's amazing. Who else?
Well, Charlize Theron is another great example. She had a really tough childhood, and she faced tons of rejection when she was first starting out as an actor.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but she didn't give up. She reframed those experiences. She used them to fuel her ambition. And now she's a critically acclaimed actress and, a Hollywood star.
Talk about resilience. I mean, these are people who faced serious adversity. It really shows that anyone can use this to overcome challenges.
Yeah, and even Albert Einstein, one of the greatest minds ever, he didn't actually speak until he was 4 years old.
Really? I had no idea.
Can you imagine the assumptions people made about him back then?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But he didn't let it stop him. That unique way of thinking, which some might have seen as a limitation, it ended up changing the world.
Okay, that's incredible. So it sounds like reframing is a pretty ancient idea. Were there any, like, philosophers who were early adopters of this?
Well, the Stoics, they were a school of philosophy in ancient Greece, and they believed that our interpretation of events is what truly shapes our experience.
Oh, yeah, the Stoics. I remember reading that Marcus Aurelius quote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." That's basically reframing, right?
Exactly. He and the Stoics, they understood that you can't always control what happens to you, but you can control your thoughts and reactions.
Right.
And that's really where the power of reframing lies.
So we've got ancient wisdom and modern science backing this up. This is pretty cool. But I'm ready to get practical here. What are some actual techniques we can use to start reframing things in our own lives?
I'm glad you asked. The research you sent, it's full of great techniques. But one of the most important things is simply identifying those negative thoughts that keep popping up.
Okay, so like if I'm thinking, I'll never finish this project on time, should I write that down?
That's a good start. Just by acknowledging those negative thoughts, bringing them out into the open, can help you detach from them. You start to see them more objectively.
And then what?
Then you challenge them. You ask yourself, is this really true? What evidence do I have for this? Like, have you never finished a project on time before?
Okay, so I'm not just accepting those negative thoughts, I'm putting them on trial.
That's the idea. And you can also think about, what resources or strategies you have to make sure you do meet the deadline. It's about being proactive.
So instead of getting stuck in that negativity, I'm looking for solutions. I like it.
Exactly. And that's where the actual reframing comes in. You replace that negative thought with something more positive, more constructive.
So instead of I'm doomed,
Yeah.
it's more like this is challenging, but I'm going to figure it out.
Exactly.
Okay, that already feels better. What other techniques can we use to reframe our thinking?
Well, gratitude is a really powerful one. Take a few minutes each day to just appreciate the good things in your life, no matter how small. It helps shift your focus from what's wrong to what's right.
Yeah, I've heard that before, but does it really make that much of a difference?
Honestly, more than you might think.
Yeah.
You're not ignoring the challenges. You're just choosing to appreciate the good stuff, too. And that can really shift your whole outlook.
It's like focusing on the silver linings. What about positive self-talk? I've heard about that too.
It's incredibly powerful. You're replacing those negative inner voices with more supportive, encouraging ones. Instead of, I'm not good enough, it's, I'm learning and growing.
I love that. It's like being your own cheerleader. But what about when you're surrounded by negativity? Like, what if your friends or family aren't into this whole reframing thing?
That's a great point, and it highlights how important it is to surround yourself with supportive people, as much as possible anyway.
That's easier said than done sometimes.
That's true. But even small adjustments can make a big difference. Maybe you seek out online communities or groups, people who are focused on personal growth. Or find ways to limit your exposure to those negative influences.
So it's about creating an environment that supports you, even if you can't control everyone else.
Right. You can't always control other people's behavior, but you can control how you respond to it.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about when things are just really hard? Like when it's tough to find anything positive?
Those are the times when humor can be a real lifesaver.
Yeah.
Yeah, laughter is the best medicine, right? But how can you find humor in truly difficult situations?
Well, it's not about making light of the situation. It's about finding a way to detach a little bit, you know? Sometimes just acknowledging how absurd things are can shift your perspective and reduce the stress.
So even in a crisis, there might be a little bit of humor to be found.
Often, yeah. And sometimes that little bit is all it takes to shift your mindset and start seeing things in a new light.
We've covered a lot of ground already. We talked about what reframing is, the science behind it, even some inspiring examples of people using it to overcome challenges. And we touched on some techniques like challenging negative thoughts, practicing gratitude, using positive self-talk, and even, surrounding yourself with supportive people and finding humor in tough situations.
That's just the beginning.
I know, right? There's so much more to explore. In part 2 of this deep dive, we'll be looking at how reframing can help you unlock your creative potential, navigate relationships more smoothly, and even contribute to a more compassionate world. It's going to be good.
Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. Last time, we talked about how reframing can change your brain, change your life, the whole deal. But one thing I'm super curious about is how it can help with creativity, unlock that innovative side of ourselves. Any tips on how to make that happen?
Well, you've already hit on a key point there. Reframing helps us break free from those rigid thinking patterns. The we've always done it this way mentality.
Yeah, I know that one all too well.
Reframing helps us see things from a totally new angle.
So if I'm stuck on a problem, hitting a wall, reframing could help me find a way around it. Or over it, even under it.
Exactly. It's all about challenging those assumptions, asking what if, instead of being stuck in, it has to be this way.
I love that. Can you give me a real world example, something relatable?
Sure, let's say you're struggling to find a unique gift for a friend. You've been searching online, same old stores, nothing feels right.
Ugh, yeah, I hate when that happens.
Instead of getting frustrated, try reframing the problem itself.
Okay, how do I do that?
Ask yourself, what does my friend really value? What brings them joy? What problem could you solve for them that they haven't even thought of?
Oh, that's a good point. So it's not about the thing itself, it's more about the feeling or the need behind it.
You got it. And that shift can open up so many possibilities. Maybe instead of a physical gift, you plan an experience, something that connects with their interests. Or you could volunteer together for a cause they care about.
Okay, now we're talking. It's about thinking outside the box, literally.
Right. And the more you practice reframing, the easier it gets. It becomes second nature. You start seeing possibilities where other people just see roadblocks.
It's like a superpower.
Yeah.
So we talked about reframing for personal growth, relationships, creativity. But zooming out a bit, do you think reframing can have an impact on society? Could it help us solve those big, complex problems we're facing?
Now, that's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
And I do think it has a role to play, especially in conflict resolution. When we can reframe situations, see them from multiple perspectives, we're way more likely to find solutions that work for everyone.
It's like that saying, walk a mile in someone else's shoes. But with reframing, we're not just imagining, we're actually trying to see the world through their eyes.
Exactly. And that kind of empathy is crucial for creating a more understanding, compassionate world. When we can shift from judgment to curiosity, from blame to understanding, it just opens up so much potential for positive change.
So reframing isn't just a self-help tool, it could actually help us build a better future. That's pretty amazing. But if I'm being totally honest, I still have a bit of skepticism. Like, is it always possible to reframe things? What about those truly awful situations where there just doesn't seem to be a good side?
That's a really important point. And reframing isn't about denying reality or pretending everything is perfect. It's about finding that most empowering perspective within that reality,
Yeah.
even when it's tough.
So even if something is inherently negative, we still have a choice in how we respond to it.
Exactly. There's always something to be learned, even from the most challenging experiences. There's always a way to find meaning, to grow, to become more resilient.
I like that. But what about when things just feel like they're falling apart? How do you even begin to reframe something like that?
Well, let's say you experience a major setback in your career. You lose a job, a project fails, a dream opportunity disappears.
Oof. Yeah, been there.
It's totally natural to feel those negative emotions, the disappointment, frustration, maybe even fear.
It's certainly not a fun place to be.
But instead of letting those emotions completely take over, you can ask yourself, what did I learn in that role? What new skills did I develop? What possibilities are now open to me because my path has changed?
So instead of the end of the road, it's more like a detour, which could actually lead to something even better.
Precisely. And you never know where that detour might take you. Sometimes those setbacks can actually become the catalyst for something even more amazing than you could have imagined.
Wow, I'm starting to see how this is more than just thinking differently. It's about living differently. It's about approaching every experience, good or bad, as an opportunity for growth.
That's it. And it's a journey, not a destination. We're always learning, always evolving, always finding new ways to reframe our perspective.
It's what makes life so interesting. So we've covered how reframing can help with creativity, with resilience, and even with tackling those big world challenges. But I'm guessing there's still more to explore, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. In part 3, we'll dive into some of the potential pitfalls of reframing and how to avoid them. And we'll explore that fascinating connection between reframing and mindfulness. It's going to be good.
Can't wait. Stay tuned, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. So we've been talking about reframing, all the good stuff, the benefits, the techniques. But is there anything we should watch out for? Are there any, downsides to reframing? It almost seems too good to be true.
It's a fair question. Like any powerful tool, reframing can definitely be misused.
Okay, I was thinking that. So what are some of the things to watch out for? What are some of those potential pitfalls?
One common one is falling into that trap of toxic positivity.
Toxic positivity. What's that? When people are just overly happy all the time?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
It's that good vibes only kind of mentality where you just ignore anything negative or difficult.
Oh, okay. I see. So it's not about pretending everything is perfect.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Reframing isn't about denying reality or suppressing your true feelings.
Yeah.
It's about acknowledging the situation, allowing yourself to feel those emotions, but then finding a more empowering perspective.
So you're not ignoring the bad stuff, you're just choosing to focus on the good.
Yeah, it's more about finding that balance. It's
Yeah.
okay to feel sad, angry, frustrated, all of that. Those emotions are valid. Ignoring them won't make them go away. In fact, it can actually make things worse.
Oh, that's so true. I think I've definitely fallen into that trap before, feeling like I have to be positive all the time. It's almost like I'm invalidating my own feelings.
I get it. It's a common struggle. But it's important to give yourself permission to feel what you're feeling. It's about finding that middle ground. Feel those emotions, but don't let them consume you. And once you've acknowledged them, then you can shift your focus to what you can control.
Right. Our thoughts, actions, and ultimately our perspective.
Exactly.
So, are there any other pitfalls we should be aware of?
Another one is using reframing to avoid responsibility.
Interesting. What do you mean by that?
Okay, let's say you make a mistake at work.
Okay.
Instead of acknowledging your mistake, and taking steps to fix it, you might try to reframe it as no big deal or blame it on someone else.
Ah, I see. So you're using reframing to avoid accountability.
Exactly. Reframing should be a tool for growth, for self-improvement.
Well,
It's not an excuse to avoid responsibility for your actions.
that's a good point. So we have to be mindful of our intentions, right? It's not about twisting reality. It's about finding a more constructive way to approach a situation.
That's a great way to put it. It's about using reframing responsibly, authentically, in a way that aligns with your values and goals.
I love that. So this whole conversation about reframing has really got me thinking about mindfulness. Is
Mhm.
there a connection there?
Oh, absolutely. Mindfulness is all about being present, without judgment. And reframing requires that same kind of awareness.
So if I'm not paying attention to my thoughts and feelings, I can't really reframe them.
Right. Mindfulness helps you become aware of those thought patterns, the emotional reactions, those automatic negative thoughts that can really hold you back.
And once you're aware of them, then you can choose to reframe them.
Exactly. Mindfulness gives you that space to pause, to observe, and then make a conscious choice about how you want to respond.
It's like they work together, mindfulness and reframing, to create a more positive mental state.
It really is a powerful combination. And the best part is, both are skills you can develop with practice. The more mindful you are, the easier it is to catch those negative thoughts and reframe them.
Yeah.
And the more you practice reframing, the more mindful you become overall.
It's like a positive feedback loop. The more you do it, the better you get and the more you benefit.
Exactly. Less stress, better relationships, more creativity, even a boost to your physical health.
It's amazing how all these things are connected. So it's not just about feeling better mentally, it's about living a better life overall.
That's the power of reframing. But I'm sure you're wondering, how do we actually make this a part of our everyday lives? Things get busy, it's easy to forget.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. Like, how do I actually remember to do this when I'm in the middle of, life happening?
That's where that mindfulness practice comes in. Even just a few minutes a day can make a big difference. It helps you become more aware of your thoughts and reactions throughout the day.
So, like, meditation or yoga.
Yeah, those are great. Or even just taking a few deep breaths and paying attention to your senses. It's about finding what works for you and making it a habit.
And as you become more mindful, you start to notice those moments when reframing could be helpful.
Right, like when you're feeling stressed about a deadline or frustrated with a coworker or just stuck in a negative thought loop.
So those are the perfect opportunities to practice. This has been such an incredible deep dive. We've explored so much: the science, the benefits, the potential pitfalls, even the connection to mindfulness. I feel like I have a whole new toolkit for approaching life's challenges.
Me too. It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.
Before we wrap up, any final words of wisdom for our listeners out there?
Remember, it's a journey, not a destination. Be patient with yourself, keep practicing, and don't be afraid to experiment with different techniques until you find what works best for you.
And most importantly, remember that you have the power to choose your perspective. You can choose to focus on the good, to look for opportunities, to create a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
You have that power.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of reframing. We hope you've enjoyed this exploration as much as we have, and we hope you're feeling inspired to start putting these techniques into practice in your own lives.
Thanks for joining us on this journey.
Until next time, keep diving deep.